You're listening to an episode recorded during the time Innovation Fuel was part of University Canada West. We are proud and grateful for the work we've done together, and we want to thank the university for being in our podcast. We are now excited to continue the journey of Innovation Fuel into its next chapter. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back, Dave, Kieran.
Where have I been? Have I been on vacation? I don't feel like I've been on vacation. I'm still in my home in COVID times. Wow. I inspire to take this show on the road, Gelareh. I think we should take this show on the road. I think we should go somewhere nice and warm and take this show on the road post-COVID.
Please. For sure. Do you remember Jack Smith, Dave?
What a dynamite conversation. And wow. And the challenges that Indigenous people face. Wow. And the services that are not available. Hey, yeah. Is Jack back with us?
Yeah, Jack is back to talk about the services that are available for Indigenous or what is missing. I think that we can continue our discussion with Jack Smith about the services for Indigenous entrepreneurs. Welcome, Jack. That is another episode of Innovation Fuel.
Yes, Jack, welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be back.
We had a discussion about entrepreneur ecosystem for reserved areas and for Indigenous people. Discuss a lot about the services as well that can be available, but we haven't go through that one. So what is available for Indigenous entrepreneurs in reserve area? What kind of services they have access? Because as you said, there is a rich history, there is a potential there. There is not just a potential of the people that want to do it, but also resources there. But how they can access to those services?
There are specific government programs. There are some government agencies that provide knowledge around starting up businesses, financial literacy, and so on. These are available to individuals. They're available to First Nations. Part of the access issue with them may have to do with sort of the learning curve that you face when you need to access programs and you go through, for example, government programs. Well, how do I fill out this form to access the support I'm looking for to do an economic development plan or a comprehensive community plan, or to even do feasibility study? How do I fill out the forms and do things like that? Sometimes you have communities where you have limited broadband internet capability, and so you have limited time on that, and you also have weak signals, and it just gets to be a prolonged process. So there's timing, there's issues around technology, but there are all the programs pretty much that are available to Canadians generally as well. For people to access. So those are there, along with specific First Nation or Indigenous or other programs that they can access. And it takes a fair bit of research. I think it takes some expertise or maybe some support in sort of drilling down and finding what kind of agency or what kind of program would best support what you're looking for. If you're an entrepreneur, for example, who wants to start a small business, where do you go for that? You can look through the website. Organizations like the Canadian Can Do, for example, the Council for the Advancement of Native Development Officers, which I've been involved with off and on over the years.
You are saying that their services are there, but availability through the technology is one issue because they don't have the access to the better internet. So these the services are available, but accessing from reserved areas is kind of difficult.
That's a bit cumbersome. I often don't want to even look at the website because it takes so long, but still we have to do it. And the feedback you get often be specifically what you're looking for, but you have to keep on trying. I'm thinking of individuals who are looking for support, or even the First Nation Development Officer who's looking for, say, support from Indigenous Services Canada with a particular economic development program or so on, or proposal. And then there's often a limited capacity within governments and agencies as well.
What I can see, for example, Canadian Council of Aboriginal Business, they have many, many services for growth, for supply chain, for operation, for marketing, for HRs, for different even principle of business. They have many programs, but most of the community of Indigenous people, are they aware of these services?
One of the basic things that I find very useful within communities is if you have somebody who's able to do that research and then help the community members or help the economic development officer to maneuver those websites. But also, I do know, for example, that Can-Do, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Can-Do, but I know they have a limited personnel within house, although they provide a lot of links to other agencies for finance, for example, and there's the Aboriginal Finance Officers Association. There's different groups who would be of great assistance in assisting individuals, but I find a lot of the agencies are more like networking agencies. And then when you get down to the individuals themselves who you want to contact and talk to, the availability is so small that the capacity is there, although everything is well intentioned. Every day I get from Can-Do 2 or 3 emails about, podcasts that's available, and then it's access to a consultant or whatever, right? So the networking is great. It's good. And I think it's getting better as we go. But I think there is opportunity. Really believe there's opportunity for 2 things. One is to build a community of entrepreneurs within Canada and even internationally, but I'll stay within Canada for now, through sharing experiences, business startup experiences, access to finance, access to marketing expertise. How do you market, your products and services? And this would be not just useful for the Indigenous people, but also for the communities that they live in, and also for, agencies. And I dare say that it would also be pretty useful to provincial and federal and local governments who want to access Indigenous services generally in Canada.
So Jack, would you say there's equal infrastructure support throughout every community in Canada, or is this limited to some communities? Like if you say, for an example, Wi-Fi access to even access some of these elements, is it the same across everywhere?
No, it's not the same issue everywhere. I think you have 600, 700 communities within Canada. That's a big issue for many of the communities, particularly in the northern parts of Canada. For me on Vancouver Island, communities I work with, internet is not an issue. It's there. Other types of things become issues, like access to adequate hydro to do some of the projects you want to do. They're more capital kind of based issues. Access to water and sewer, proper size water pipes, things like that. Other kinds of infrastructure that cost money, which potentially could add considerable cost to doing business, right? So yeah, those things. The other thing that I was thinking of in terms of, that great opportunity that is out there for individuals to come together and provide something. But I think there's also opportunities to complement formal training that you might get at a trade school or ECIT, all the major institutions in the province that provide business training, to complement that, the kind of formal training that you usually get in those, like I got with the executive MBA, that sort of thing. I think there's, like, within the community, if you're assisted by having good access to internet, and it's a lot more feasible, but you can create situations where individuals receive strong mentorship, whether it be, in marketing or in financing your enterprise, when to pivot, how to assess, all those things that you need to do when you're in business, and those things that you need to say, well, what's the milestone that we reached? What kind of metrics are we going to use here? And how are those going to inform our decision, right? How's our management, our operations, how's everything? And I think that's really important because people don't think in those terms, right? We think. I was a young entrepreneur at one time, and I really liked what I was doing, but I wasn't making any money at it. And I was too stubborn to leave it. So at one time, I actually went into bankruptcy as a result of a lack of sort of hands-on, or the things weren't selling, and I wasn't a good enough salesman, I guess, to get the product and service out there. So that happened to me. And what did I learn from that? Well, I learned that, I got to learn to be flexible. I have to learn to roll with the punches. I have to take an accounting course or a bookkeeping course, whatever. It's the educational piece that could be there, whether it's University of Canada West or somebody who could work with individuals who are wanting to create a mentorship type environment where they could actually do on-the-job stuff. I mean, like even within economic development corporations, there's lots of room for innovation and a ton of opportunities. You just have to kind of brainstorm them. What are they? What does the individuals want to do? Because I found with more information, people have more choices. these are ways, by adding facts and adding more information, people can take that and run with it. You know what? I had an idea to do this business. I didn't know how to get it off the ground, but now I have some idea. By creating formal mentorship hubs, whatever, and also by developing some sort of platform where individuals and organizations from across Canada can get together and take ownership of the information that they have.
So, Jack, you're almost talking a lack of, incubation opportunities. Maybe there's an opportunity for an incubation, and then I think the next story that we want to talk about is as we move from that incubation stage and we've got a successful MVP or minimal viable product, how do we scale it up, and what do we need to scale it up, and do we have the right infrastructure in place to move that into an accelerator mode in order to scale it up?
Well, I don't know that an accelerated mode would be. I just think everything moves so slowly. I think some things that are happening that are good is that there is getting to be more and more opportunities of access to finance. And finance goes a long way. But it has to be strategic, and choices have to be made about where's the best place to put that. There's available funds. And I think that takes support. And I think that's where, incubators with access to strategic expertise will help move things along. Can't be hit and miss like when I first started out in business just because I thought I had a good product or a service or a good idea. It has to be strategic and developed with some sort of plan in mind.
So we have a lot of lab accelerators, a lot of services in big cities. But do we have any kind of lab or youth Indigenous that they want to gain a technology or digital skills, or they have some idea in digital, for example, digital ideas or technology ideas? Is there any place in their own community they can go and help them on this technology or innovative ideas, or no, they have to come to big cities?
I would say in most communities, there's a place that people can go, not so much place for like access to business expertise or, entrepreneurship program or any kind of hands-on mentoring even. It's very limited. And it's limited usually by the capacity of the First Nation to provide that. That's the main thing. And sometimes there's a critical mass situation, right? I mean, you don't, unless you amalgamate or join with a number of other communities to set that up, then you can get that in, whether through tribal council that might set that up or friendship center that might set that up. But in community itself, that often isn't there unless you specifically create some of those programs like we did for natural resources. We could do that for business. I think that would be a great thing to do considering the way things are moving in the world. Used to be an issue, here's some progress, used to be an issue of people not having computers. So whenever you got new computers at your office or from an agency or whatever, you gave them to the community, help people learn to use that. And that's a good starting point, actually. But today, people have computers. People have phones that are computers, in essence. And so access that way is great, or is better than we've ever had.
And you make some really good points here, Jack, about incubation elements. Like, there is some tools there, but there seems to be still a lack of additional tools that are more modernized, that are moving into this new technology world, and a lack of mentorship there to support that incubation, to make sure, like when we look here at the city, for an example, if I want to develop something, there's maker spaces for me to go. Like, there's places for me to go out into the different types around the community and be able to build an idea or concept. Or also there's also all these mentors around that I can tap into through different incubation centers in order for me to challenge an idea, figure out if an idea is going to work in the market.
Right. I mean, you're comfortable doing that, right? The thing we might talk about in the future is, how comfortable are people leaving the community or going outside the community to get that support, right? And how comfortable are they to express their ideas, right? Without getting shot down or whatever. And having the confidence takes a little bit of training. I mean, lots of people in our country and around the world, I guess, don't have the confidence to go and find that expertise. I think the way to fast track it is to go into the community, be with the individuals in the places that they're comfortable, and to do hands-on work. That's been my experience, is whether it's been in negotiations and bringing people along in terms of managing files for different projects. It's all hands-on stuff. They didn't need, if they had grade 12 or maybe a college degree or whatever, didn't need much more than that in the expertise. They knew how to learn. It was great. The only thing is we have to assist more people get to that point where they're willing to take that next step. And I think that would be a really great legacy for any individual such as myself or person who's had the opportunity to be out there and gain some skills and knowledge. And then to universities and institutions such as yours to go out to the communities and provide that or help or work with communities to establish that. And again, we have, the cultural differences all across the country and working with that component. How do you do that? I think in the general business sense, whenever you do business now, you have to consider that.
So if I can understand in the whole thing, you were saying that there is a lot of services, there's a lot of infrastructures. There's two things missing. One of them is technology. Second, then it's an identity and the reserved area and help them there rather than ask them to come to other places. And they feel more comfortable and confident in their own community.
I would say that going far away, and even for some folks like on Vancouver Island, going to Vancouver is far away. But within Central Island or South Island or North Island, folks are comfortable to travel. And we have opportunities at different locations for that to get access to those things. I don't think supports are necessarily well established. And it takes beyond just having some infrastructure to get out there and know what it is and do the research, but it also costs just to travel.
But I think, Jack, it takes a starting element. And I think what we're really starting to understand here is to start with something like a solid incubation system where you have the mentor support, where you have all the right technology, all the right pieces. And then, as you said, from friendship circles and other areas, then we can start expanding it out to other Indigenous communities and say, hey, we know this, we're an expertise in this, you guys have an expertise in this, can we co-collaborate and create something together? And then look towards that accelerator model of how do we take these ideas and accelerate them so they get, faster traction in the market, because we know that technology is rapidly changing. It's happening so fast, and we all need to be moving fast and moving with this agility. And we need to be able to support these communities and make sure they can move fast and rapidly to meet those needs.
Right. So that's joining the how-to with the ideas, basically, and some of the traditional concepts of things and so on. But then you're exactly right. I mean, this is the thing I experience is you take a year off something, and the technology has gone so fast, and the information, the data has accumulated so quickly, that's where I think, joining and being in a position to create that infrastructure so that, out of that incubator, you go to that accelerator mode where you start talking to others across the country who have similar experiences and that those experiences are successful or not. And moving forward from that, but building the database further from that. And I think that's one of the things that organizations like Can Do and some others really aspire to. They recognize the lack of data upon which to create better programming and services for entrepreneurs and First Nations.
There is a lot of challenges. So what challenge do you think that our student can solve for you?
I think a good challenge for the audience would be, I'm assuming people come from a variety of backgrounds who listen to the podcast, and they have experience internationally or nationally or even locally, and maybe specifically with incubator and hands-on approaches to developing successful entrepreneurship and growing those, right? Scaling them by adding individuals and sharing the ownership of those kinds of things. Part of it goes to, if I could receive recommendations about how to deal with the issues that we identified, this segment. What are some good ideas or good references, and why? Why would they be specifically applicable to the kind of things we outlined? Because many things that we talked about are kind of issues that entrepreneurs experience generally. We have a situation here. We're not coming from a level playing field. We're often coming out of a system. I'm going to just label as, we come out of a culture of dependence and we're moving quickly to another level. But we don't want technology and, everything out there to outpace us. So how can we develop that and stay without losing any more ground to that. So that would be my challenge to anyone listening to today.
I am on board. I think this is a great idea. Yes, let's figure out how we can help in that space, and how do we bring that successful incubation model with the right mentors, with the right technology, and then quickly figure out how do we move that to an acceleration model. Because we do not want to lose any more ground. We want to get more and more of different communities around to have the opportunity to bring those ideas to market and be able to scale them up.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Dave. That was another episode of Innovation Fuel.
Thank you.